Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode on Laid Back the Inter podcast. Our topic for this week is child healthcare in the diaspora. This is part 2 of the series. Our guest for today is a doctor in the field of pediatrics. Hello, Dr. Buko.
Hello, what's up?
Or should I say Chibuko or Chibuko Wanjoli? Which one is it?
Anyone, I didn't answer anyone, I beg.
All of them follow. But before we start, let's just delve into pediatrics. Why did you choose this particular field of medicine?
Why did I choose pediatrics? I think I'm not really sure if there's a straightforward answer to that. I think that I got in part of my early influences in life were from the doctors that I saw when I was younger, and I sort of looked up to them. Obviously, the only doctors that I met as a child would be the pediatrician. I thought he was quite brilliant. I liked the way he approached management of children, if I could use that word as a toddler. Do
you remember the person's name?
Oh yes, I do. I'm not sure if I should call his name.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, Prophet CB, everyone knows him anyway. With the patients and their families, I enjoy that interaction, the social part of my work, which is just getting to know these patients and just realizing that whatever little you do helps. It doesn't really matter what it is that they've come in with. It could just be a cold. It could be something more sinister. But the fact that you've been with them and you're able to provide answers for them and some reassurance, I think that's one of the things that I would say that makes my job worthwhile.
Yeah. So what would you say, like, I know the way how we actually approach healthcare in Nigeria is totally different from what we do here in the UK. What do you think has been the difference, like, considering your experience as a doctor here? How do you think that the parents and the immigrant parents here and Nigerian parents actually, how they handle the access to child healthcare compared to what we do in Nigeria? What do you think is the difference?
I think that's a very interesting question with not one definite answer to it, basically. I mean, obviously, we know that accessing healthcare in this country there are difficulties in accessing healthcare, regardless of the age. The waiting times in the NHS now are just horrific anyways. So that is a major issue in this country at the moment. But I think that in terms of, I will say, healthcare seeking behaviors though is different. And I would say that though that back home Nigeria, you would find that you have better health seeking behaviors in your well-educated, well-to-do or economically advantaged families had a better sort of health seeking behavior than your lower earning class families. In this country, I think because you have free healthcare at the point of access, there is a better health seeking behavior here. So people, it has its advantages, it has its disadvantages, in my opinion, in the sense that a lot of people will come in if they are worried about the most little things, and a lot of people are aware of the red flags, that's what we call them, those things that you should be worried about and should seek medical care because the information is out there. On the other hand, you have people who come in because of the most simple things that could have been sorted by either primary care or at home, basically, by just, taking paracetamol, for instance. But everyone, so that adds to the stress of the work. And it's a challenge, especially for anyone who's coming from any other, let's just say, developing countries like Nigeria. coming here and realizing that, one, you cannot just walk into any hospital and demand to see a doctor immediately.
Yeah.
That there are waiting times and that there is a process to being referred. You know, we don't, as much as there is that people are leaning towards private healthcare in the UK now, is not as popular as what we have with the NHS. So you have a lot of parents who have come in and their children are ill and they still need some sort of advice on how to seek healthcare. You know, so I think that is the major difference. The pathways to seeking healthcare in this country are different. It is a very structured pathway that is not easily flexible, if I should say that. You always have to go through your primary care to be referred to, for instance, for secondary care management, or you have to go through A&E, for instance, to be admitted. So these are some of the issues that are different. It doesn't mean that it makes it easier for one to follow the story of any patient, because you know where this has started from. However, the wait times is such a huge turn off for a lot of parents, especially, and you find that some of our immigrant parents may decide to hold off a little while because they don't want to spend all their day in A&E, for instance.
When they have things to do.
Exactly. So it's multi-layered, and we can sit the whole day and talk about the different forms of it. Obviously, we've not even touched the aspect of better access to healthcare resources here. I mean, the investigations that we are able to perform and the turnover time of these results is nothing to compare to where we've come from, especially when we are comparing with public maybe state-owned hospitals. So that's like a huge different conversation for another day.
Okay. So since you mentioned the health-seeking behaviors of immigrant parents, Nigerians, and the rest or Africans in general per se, do you think cultural differences actually play a role? Because I know in cases like neglect or abuse, like in safeguarding the children, because for example, some people are used to waiting till they are sure the child is so ill before they go to the hospital. That's what they are used to. So by the time they get to the hospital, it might be too late. So in that particular scenario, how is it linked to safeguarding when it comes to the children? Because another person might look at it and say they are neglecting their child, or that's abuse.
I think that when we talk about neglect, it's there are various ways one can actually look at it. It's case dependent, but obviously, as a general rule, every child is considered vulnerable given their age. You know, they are dependent on their carers, be it the parents, the teachers, or social work, whoever it is that has parental rights. For that child is who that child is dependent on. So if it is assumed that this child cannot speak for themselves, so it is expected that the adult in that child's life should be able to do the right thing by that child. And this is not to say that the voice of the child is not put into account in any situation. Whatever the child says, we accept, because that child has a voice. I don't know if you get what I mean. But we expect that the adult in that child's life should also be responsible. So when we talk about neglect, it can be in various forms. You know, you could have physical neglect, you could have psychological neglect, emotional neglect, nutrition. I think that in a situation where a child is brought into the hospital, for instance, after several days of being unwell, and the parents have not sought care, medical care, then obviously that raises some concerns, especially with healthcare professionals. And this is not to say that it's any different from what you will find back home. We might just tell the parents off there and then in the hospital, like, chastise them for not caring enough for their child. Whereas here, there are processes that are now involved, because if a child has come in and has been unwell for days without having any form of care, medical care or medical attention, then one begins to wonder what else has happened.
Yeah.
Do you understand, behind the scenes, and that is where we begin to talk about, negligence. So we talk about safeguarding for our for kids and things like that. So I think that it is something that a lot of immigrant parents tend to try to get their head around, because it's that feeling of, someone accusing you that you don't care about your child, but there might be circumstances around that family that may have put them in the situation that they found themselves, So it's a very, when we talk about cultural behavior, cultural attitudes for immigrant parents and immigrant families, it's a very, very big topic right now in the NHS. And it's something that we would like to inculcate, not just amongst immigrant parents, but also the British populace too. Because when we talk about what the term cultural intelligence is what we usually use here, because a lot of families, we leave our homes, or where we call our home, our family, our countries, and come into a new country, a sovereign country. We have to understand that there are laws that we should live by. And claiming ignorance of those laws is not an excuse. But at the same time, we also need to find that balance between getting our hosts, the British people, basically to understand that you have families, you have men, women, and children who have moved away from home, a place that they've always known, but they haven't left the values, they haven't left practices and cultural tendencies that they've grown with. They didn't leave that behind on coming here. So sometimes all it needs is just unlearning some of those cultures. Obviously, not everything we do is bad. Unlearning and trying to find a compromise, or finding a way to make sure that we don't go against the laws here. So I think that it's an ongoing conversation, and some of us are trying to do our bit in educating immigrant parents on different ways of seeking healthcare, when to seek healthcare, how to do it the right way, and also when to speak up if you think that you're not being heard. Because these are all different ways that we have found, some roadblocks for immigrant families too. So it's a very it's a very interesting topic that I think that is an ongoing conversation, and a lot of us are trying our best to contribute to.
That's interesting, because when you talk about unlearning a lot of cultural practices and things we are used to back home, I know growing up we are not used to talking about emotions and how we feel. And the reason I say this is because I know social and emotional development is one of the 5 main areas of child development. So for these immigrant parents, how do you think they can actually help their kids to actually develop optimally in these different areas of development, including the social, emotional, or development? How do you think they can actually help their children to develop properly?
I think that especially it's not impossible, but I can see why it's difficult, because I believe in this saying that you cannot give what you don't have. You can't. If all you've known if you genuinely believe that every time you were spanked, every time you were flogged at home is what has set you on the right path to who you are today, then you would not find it. You will find it very funny if someone told you not to do the same for your kid.
Yeah.
Because you would try to understand what else am I supposed to do to this child? How else am I supposed to set them straight? So I think that it's a very difficult thing, and I feel like I still struggle with that. Even though I work with kids and I know some of these things, but obviously when you have kids, you have to, learn how to approach discipline differently.
Yeah,
disciplining your children differently, and it's like it goes back to what I said about learning and unlearning. There are laws in this land, for instance, about physical corporal punishment or physical chastisement for children. Laws against it. In Scotland, and I believe it's Wales, it's a complete no-no. You're not meant to smack a child at all. England, on the other hand, have danced around it. There's a law about you are able to smack the child as long as you don't leave a bruise. Smack the child without. Yes, there is a law. It's I will send you a link to it so that you can also post it. So I think that so there are laws within England that allow you to be able to smack your child as long as you don't leave a bruise on your child, which is obviously it's very difficult to get around that.
Yeah,
because it would mean that you are not actually. How do I put this without sounding? When we say smack from back home, if you're smacking a child, you're not smacking obviously to kill the child, but you're smacking the child to deliver a message, deliver a message basically, and it's not a kind of smack that if you smack me like that as a child, obviously you're playing with yourself, because I'm going to do what I'm going to do because that's what you're doing. You know what I mean? So so I think that when we say it's a law here that you are not meant to leave a bruise, but I think that there has to be other ways to approach disciplining your child. And it's like I mentioned earlier about unlearning certain things.
Yes.
It's about knowing that, when you want to discipline a child, it has to come from a place of love.
Yeah.
It has to come from a place of genuinely want to teach this child the right thing. Most times you find that when parents back home are disciplining their children, it's coming from a place of either frustration, of having to repeat themselves several times, and being very mad from every other thing that might be going on in their life, and they just descend on that child with all that frustration, and that is where you've crossed the line. You're no longer disciplining this child. It's pure, simply abuse. If you asked me now today, do I think that being corporal punishment, for instance, was it a bad thing for me? Yeah, it's very hard for me to say, because I wouldn't say that I turned out too badly. I don't know if you get what I mean. I wouldn't consider myself like worst of the bunch, and I wouldn't say that there was something that has been done in my past that is affecting my mental behavior or mental health or things like that. Maybe there are underlying injuries and traumas I'm yet to explore, but it is several studies have shown that corporal punishment does have its impact in children, and especially in later ages as they grow older. There is no where that it's stated that it's corporal punishment, including other things, is what has made a child to develop into a responsible adult. So which means that there are other ways that we can go about disciplining without actually causing abuse. And we can go on and discuss about what some of these things are. One of the very useful ways I think that I found I worked with kids is, withdrawing some of their things that they enjoy. For instance, say, you remember, like, oh, you enjoy playing games and you've been naughty. Well, no games for you for the next one. Or you don't get to go out, so you don't get to go out with your friends, or you don't get to play with your phones. A lot of kids, these are the things that make their life enjoyable
and meaningful.
Yes, exactly. And you can't imagine taking today's teenager taking the phone, taking their phone away from them. It's like literally you're saying die for some people. Honestly, that's what they feel like. Like there's no point being alive because I can't speak with my friends. I don't want to speak to you. So withdrawing some of these things that they seem to enjoy can also tend to, send that message across. They may kick off, but they do come around. And having to learn that it's not all about screaming, it's not all about shouting at the child. You need to what children need is an explanation. What children need is that open and safe space to be able to explain themselves and also be explained to. That it's just important that children are allowed to develop emotionally and develop that emotional connection with their parents, because it's something that a lot of parents now didn't grow up with. And like I said, if you don't make a conscious effort to unlearn those traits, then you will find it very difficult to be any different with your children. And that is where we run into problems here, because children are taught to be very open. You don't want a situation where here we are, we don't have a lot of support. A lot of immigrant parents come in here and they don't have family, they don't have friends. You have the mom is working, dad is working, and the children spend all their time in school or in breakfast clubs or in after school clubs. So all the time they spend is usually with their teachers or with their peers.
Yeah.
So when a child sees what's going on around them, sees how emotionally open other children are with the teachers or with their parents, they imbibe these things. They become more open. And obviously teachers, very brilliant, of course, are very good at speaking out things that they are worried about in a child.
Yeah.
So you don't want a child to grow up, especially here in the West, a child to grow up and feel, oh, does your mom smack you? And you're like, yeah, my mom smacks me all the time if I'm being naughty. And the child is not saying it to be mean or put their parents in trouble, because that's what they know.
Yeah.
And a lot, I cannot begin to tell you the number of parents that have lost their children to these sort of we have a lot of cases like this, and it's more common with immigrant parents, because then you hear that, oh, you're being smacked at home, and then they call you in, the parents, your child has said that he gets smacked at home, and obviously you being the parent begin to wonder why is this child saying this outside. And remember what I said about like I said, remember what I said about the child having a voice.
Yeah.
The child's voice is admissible. If a child says this is what I'm going through at home, no one has the right to say it's a lie.
Yeah.
It must be investigated. Yeah. And you find a lot of parents who have been in this scenario where, we think that this child is not in a safe place at this point. And the first thing they will do at that, once we start querying, that is this child safe, then we start kicking into the process of safeguarding.
Yeah.
The child gets taken away for the meantime to a place of safety, which most times will usually be foster carer, who obviously if they had family here, most times if you have family here, they would usually assess your next of kin and say, okay, is the child safe to be here? And then the child goes there. But a lot of immigrant families don't have family here, and most of these children will end up in foster care homes with people who absolutely do not know them, who don't understand the cultural differences that come with these sort of children. And you find the children going through this entire process, which leaves the whole family traumatized. So it's it's something that I think that we all should be aware of. We all should be aware of that. No one is saying that you should allow your children to grow up without discipline. But I'm sure that there are other ways that we can always, approach this without
talk to them about it.
Yes, without going against the law. And I will say this with all sincerity, that it is not easy. It is definitely not easy. Children are sweet and they are innocent, but they can sometimes pull you. Like they will draw you to the inch of your last breath if you let them. So it's I cannot tell you that it's easy by just talking to them. It's a process, and it's something that we learn every day.
Yeah. So in that context now, let's say, because now I'm looking into the emotions of the child and emotional well-being of the child. A lot of us are not used to that. We were just told, Irene, stop doing that. You listen, something like that. So imagine in a situation where a child has learning difficulties or neuro-developmental conditions, and the parents do not really know what is actually wrong with the child at that particular time, and they take it out on the child. Is there anywhere around it for immigrant families to actually see, oh no, it is actually okay for the child to have like physical or learning disability? Don't mean the child is stupid or a dunce. You see what I mean? Because this is something not everyone is used to. So how do you think immigrant parents can actually handle this better?
First of all, I think I will start by saying that I'm sure everyone knows someone or a child that everyone called was not, in our own words, intelligent at school. That was very difficult in everything concerning academics.
Yeah.
And everyone said, oh, this one will amount to nothing. Or you see the child is really good at maybe, say, football or games, but was just horrible at everything academic. And it was just assumed that this child was not an academically inclined. Whereas now that we are all grown, we have words like dyslexia, which could have been could have explained some of the symptoms that these children had.
Yeah.
So special need children have always been with us. Yeah. I think that it has just been about awareness and just knowing that we could approach things differently.
Yeah.
And you find that now, I would say that when you are younger, obviously, and you see that we always knew one child that was like, oh, maybe he's not that smart in books, or maybe, oh, he's always very headstrong, or he doesn't listen and things like that. And we just took that as, the usual, or that's the way the child is.
That has ADHD.
Yeah, exactly. So now we learn about things like, your attention deficit, hyperactivity disorders, and you have your autism, the autism spectrum too. And so you tend to find that there are children who probably had fallen into these, categories as children, but we all just looked over them. Yeah. And obviously, nature and nurture is one thing, because if everyone keeps hounding you, like, oh, you never sit one place, or you are just a naughty boy, you just grow up with that thinking this is who I am.
Psychologically,
yeah. So you grow up into these adults who carries on this behavior without actually having anyone sit you down and say, I think this is what the problem is, and I think this is how I can help you.
Yeah.
So you have, and obviously these are not very they're more common nowadays, I think, because of awareness, and generally I tend to think that there are lots more now. And obviously, since I moved to this country, I tend to see a lot of them, even among immigrant families.
So why do you think there's a lot of them at this point in time?
I can't really answer that question, because no one seems to know why. Um, there are obviously a lot of research and studies that have gone into this to find out whether there are like things that can happen while, antenatally, while the child is still in the womb, because there are things that moms have been exposed to. We do know for sure that some of these traits are genetic. So if you have a child or if you had a sibling who had some or any of these, maybe a neurodevelopmental concern, then there is a chance of either a sibling or a child developing these things. So genetic causes or genetic correlations have been established. Another thing is also the fact that there has been so much research, so much studies done in these areas, that it's now easier to identify these children earlier enough.
Yeah.
So that child that you see that might just be throwing a tantrum every time they are in the supermarket with their parents, it might not just be a naughty 2-year-old, and just be a child that is having difficulties with, regulating their sensory, their senses, maybe the sense of hearing, sense of taste, whatever it is.
Yeah.
The child that is having difficulty in school, wouldn't sit down one place, is always running up and down. We just have ADHD.
Yeah.
So these sort of things are, because there has been so much studies or research done into these things now, it's easier for these children to be picked up early. A lot of our immigrant parents may find it difficult sometimes with, understanding the concept of giving children these diagnoses, or some people use the word labeling them. I don't like using that word, because when you label a child, sometimes it sounds negative, and it can sometimes limit their child's access to, well, not limit the child, but when a child grows up, I personally feel like when you give a child a diagnosis, it doesn't mean that the child cannot live to their potential, but don't make them feel like because you have this diagnosis means that you can't get above a certain threshold.
Yeah.
So some parents believe that talking about a child who has some delays neurodevelopmentally is more of admitting that so and you find a lot of parents resisting early intervention when it is offered.
Why do you think they do? Is it because of superstition, religious beliefs? Why do you think
I think superstition is one of them, and religious beliefs. We are very spiritual people. And we tend to believe that everything that is happening is either due to the devil or village people, who somehow can reach us from across the ocean. So we tend to, depend on spirituality fully to treat things that may have physical and concrete, treatments, or at least interventions. No one is saying you can't be spiritual, but faith plus work and all that. And so it's I think that it's one of the things that makes it very difficult, especially for parents. So you find a lot of immigrant parents who say, and the school called and said that my child is having some difficulties, and I don't believe it. I'm very angry. Like, why would they say that about my child? There's nothing wrong with my child. There genuinely could be nothing wrong with your child, but there is nothing wrong with you having a sit down with the school and saying, what are your concerns? And let me look at these concerns at home, because the child will be in school and will be at home. Some things you think you noticed, some other things you will not notice, because most times these children are with their teachers more than 6, 7, 8 hours a day.
Just like the same way we spend more time at work.
Exactly. So when these suggestions are made, I would always advise that our first reaction as immigrants shouldn't be, oh, God forbid, or Holy Ghost fire, or you people should, are back to stand down. Why not just sit down with them and go through these things? Because they may be wrong, and they can be wrong. They have been wrong before, So it's about genuinely interacting with the system and seeing how you can benefit from them if there is a genuine problem, and also being able to stand up for your child when you think that my child is, not, or being wrongly, or they have not gotten it right with my child.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So I think that it's when we talk about neurodevelopment, I feel like it's such a huge topic, not just the social, not just the psychological aspect it has on the parents and also the child, and how the system here is, develops to like support everyone involved, and whether that is enough or whether more can be done.
Yeah.
But I think that my take home about it is usually like when we have parents who are lived in this country or are just new to this country and have had some sort of concerns about their children.
Yeah.
If these concerns are shared by, say, the school teachers, then don't be in a haste to dismiss them.
Yeah.
Because another thing you don't want in this, how do I say this? You don't want to be labeled as a parent as being
difficult.
Difficult. That's the word. That's the word for every black person, basically. So you raise your voice, you are being difficult. You raise your voice, and it could be genuine concerns. You can say, for instance, that my child is, aggressive, or is very, attacks other children and things, and the child I see at home is completely fine.
Yeah.
I'm not going to just roll over and agree with you. So what my point is that if you have the school has concerns about your child, for instance, engage the school. You don't have to. That you don't agree with them doesn't mean that you should rebuff whatever observations have been made. That is my point. Let's not approach it from that point of it is us against them. It's
racism. You just labeling racism and everything.
Exactly.
I fail to listen to them.
Exactly. If they have a concern about it's just like things like there are some things that are so subtle, and I think it just comes with time that you realize them. You have children who, for instance, have difficulties with elocution. They can't pronounce certain words, and they say, I think this child will benefit from speech and language therapy.
Yeah.
Some parents go with, they're saying that my child cannot talk. No, that's not the problem.
Yeah.
The problem is we think your child needs a little bit more help with this.
Yeah.
So if we go in with that attitude of, no, they are coming after me, it's so easy for you to be labeled as difficult. Remember that you're black. Remember that you're immigrant. It doesn't mean you have to accept everything that they say. You just have to engage the system at its own level. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's just like saying that I'm at work, for instance, and someone is being difficult with me. Rather than going around telling people, this person is saying stuff about me, why not put it in an email that everybody can know that it's official? Do you get what I mean? Because everything you put on email is taken as admissible. Unlike Nigeria, that you wait for the person outside. Okay, so
exactly. You're saying the person should put that email and do what?
Exactly. I was just using that as a metaphor. Yes, as an example. So meet them at their level. Don't. So if you have concerns, if there are concerns about your child, the first thing I would advise any parents to do is go to the school who has raised the concerns.
Talk to them,
and let's see what these concerns are. If they are genuine, then be happy to work on them at home. You have to collaborate with the system to also be able to obtain whatever you can enjoy from it.
Yeah.
Do you understand? So I think as immigrant parents, when we talk about childhood development here, it's very different. The way we approach things is different. The way they are, the whites and British approach child care is different to us. So as parents, we need to find that middle ground. And we need to be able to do it in a way that does not disrupt our child's life and does not also, I'm sure a lot of people might say this is see differently, because I know there are people that are a lot more aggressive. I won't use the word aggressive, but a lot more direct. I think that it's just basically making sure that you are able to collaborate with, whenever there are concerns about your children. Because like I was saying, that there have been genuine cases where diagnoses have been delayed, especially because parents have refused to engage, the system that has been put in place to pick these maybe symptoms that were suggestive of this diagnosis.
Yeah, pick them up on time. Yeah.
Exactly. So if you say, we're worried about your child, maybe there's some problem, we think that the child needs a little bit help here. Don't just go saying, they said something wrong about my child, and like, God forbid, and try to engage them and see if those concerns are genuine, and if they are, seek help, because that's what they are there for, to help you.
Yeah, see from the positive side.
See from the positive side, exactly. Yes, because if they are wrong, then they are wrong. But what if they are right?
Exactly.
And how can they help?
Most of the issues we have in life are preconceived biases and notions we already have. For example, if you already believe Chibuko is this doctor that does not like me, so anything that particular doctor is telling you feel like, the person is after you and your child. Whereas that may not be the case. You see what I mean? So once you tell the person anything, instead of the person seeing it from a positive angle, that maybe they should be more observant with their child, they are already saying it, this person does not like me and my child, so everything he says is actually nonsense. It should always be negative. You see what I mean?
Yes, so, I agree.
It's something a lot of people need to work on. Like that, I have this interest in psychology, and I believe a lot of people should work on their preconceived notions about things and people. It actually affects the way they see things, and the way they see things, and then the way they react. Once you've seen it in a negative way, whether you like it or not, you react negatively. Whereas that's not the case. But linking it back now to child development, there's a lot of controversy about vaccines. Do you think vaccines, there are different types children take anyway, do you think it has contributed to any of the issues we've seen arising these days about maybe the neurodevelopmental conditions of learning disability or learning difficulty? Do you think there's any link at all between these vaccines and these conditions?
I'd say no, because there has been studies done about this, not just only to say that there was a link, but several studies to say that there is no link at all. I think that genuinely, because the most common one that everyone thought, or the one everyone keeps talking about, is your MMR vaccines that are given here at the age of 1.
Yeah.
And that's the one everyone tends to relate with the children who have autism.
Yeah.
It's just, I think that one, it's been found to have no connections at all. I think that it's just because of the way autism as a condition itself begins to, when it becomes more obvious in children, is about the same age when you begin to, when the child receives that MMR vaccine.
Oh.
That's probably where people had this preconceived notions, like you would say, that it's probably related to the condition, but it's not. At least studies have shown it's not. I haven't seen any other studies that have proved it otherwise, if you get what I mean. So
do you think that's the only reason there's a link between the MMR vaccine and development of autism, because of the age of manifestation in kids?
I think it's just because of how when this controversial study was done, it didn't put into, it did not, how do I say it now? It wasn't easy for people, because when you think about when the symptoms of autism begin, it's already around that same time. It's just about the time when the children receive it, and it's almost the same thing. You cannot say that it's at the 12-month vaccine that a child receives, because the same measles vaccines is received at 9 months in Nigeria.
Yeah.
So you can't then say, oh, how many babies who have had measles vaccine in Nigeria ended up being autistic? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So it did not, there was no foundational basis for the study. I think that it was a very biased study, and lots of studies have come out to refute the findings.
So no other vaccine like BCG and the rest of them, no other vaccine has been associated with development of these conditions. None, apart from
not to my awareness. No, not to my awareness. No.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, finally, let's round off. So if now you have two beautiful children, how can you ensure that their needs, like everything in general, all areas of development, of child development, emotional, social well-being, cognitive, everything, how do you ensure that their needs are actually met to make sure that they grow up to be who you want them to be?
I think that you can only wish for your child. Every parent wants the best for their child.
Yeah.
And you can only wish, you can only try.
Yeah.
You can only pray.
Yeah.
No, and forgetting that but never forget that this child is going to grow up into their own person.
Yeah.
They're going to have their own thoughts. They're going to have their own ideas. All you can do is try your best to shape them.
Yeah.
And hope that they make the right decisions.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that there's anything special I do, because I think that you go on social media and you see what other parents are doing, and you just get you don't even feel worthy to impregnate anybody. Honestly,
are you
just you feel pressure to be perfect, to be better, and I think it's just about knowing what is right and learning new ways to parent, and making sure that you don't inculcate your own childhood traumas or notions or misconceptions to your child, because every child is different. You have a first child and you think, okay, I think I figured it out, and then you have a second child who's like, wait, I'm just going to teach you that you don't know anything about children. So it's dealing with them as they come, and basically being an advocate for your child. You just have to be an advocate for your child. If you making sure that the basics are met, your child, making sure that you are able to, speak, enable your child to find their own voice, no matter how it is, so that they can be able to thrive in this world. Because, honestly, we will not be here forever. So all you need to do, you're here. The thing about growing up here is that your children will be exposed to a different culture from you. So you can only teach them to the extent of which your own culture has brought you this far.
Yeah.
They will go out and they will inculcate whatever the cultures that are, and whatever thing they can get from outside, and they'll bring it back home. So your job is to find a way to help them marry these two worlds. The Nigerian world and the UK world. And it's a lot of children, a lot of teenagers find when they get to that age of identity, then there's that crisis.
Yeah.
So it's
confused. Yeah.
Yes. It's just about being, there are parents who have older children who may have been able to navigate these issues. I've not yet been faced with them, but I think that it's just basically, learning and relearning every day.
Yeah.
That's the only way I so far that I've been able to do it. I know that you can only do so much for your kids, and then all you can do is hope for the best. So we'll
It's
see.
a lot of work. Parenting is
It's a lot of
to be
work.
honest, parenting
Think
is a
so.
lot of work. Right now, as I get older, I cut my parents some slack because you realize it's not easy. The length as the length of the job. That's the best way to put it. The length of the job.
With the number of kids that they had,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's not that easy.
you can't imagine having 5 kids here now. Like, you will die. Like, you will be mad.
Then with work, everything.
Exactly. I will go crazy. I know that for a fact. I'm not even sure how they did it. So yeah, they worked with what they had. And we have to give them their flowers. They really tried. I mean, you can't say I'm not Elon Musk or anything, but I mean,
you okay?
I could have been worse, basically.
Yeah. But on that note, this is where we're gonna end the show for today. Thank you so much for your time, Buko.
No worries, man.
Hopefully we'll do this again. It was really, really educative and informative.
Yeah, sure. Next time, maybe I'll talk about something less serious.
Definitely. All right.